Hello everybody and welcome back. We are live again. I figured I'd watch some stuff and try to get these platy ARs here. I'm just kinda addicted to it, the idea of it, and it's something I wanna do, so I'm just gonna watch some stuff and do some of that. And if you guys wanna say anything in the chat or whatever, ask me any question, I might comment on what's going on, so.
With alacrity. And Owen says, please notice me, Steph Senpai. Ah, sure. Montreal, ground zero for Quebec's pandemic. And you guys have some Antifa floating around, right? So, out of Vancouver, Antifa is doing their ugly thing. The same group that when I was out there last year trying to give a speech, they, I don't know if it was Antifa themselves, but some extreme leftists threatened the venue, vandalized a church, threatened a priest. Oh, all of that kind of stuff. Well, who was better, the Beatles or the Stones? Well, the Beatles were better in the 80s, and the Stones are more relevant to the 2020s, the 2020s.
Lives are gay.
So, yeah, we will get into it. And you are going to leave this conversation enlightened to the point where you're going to get a sunburn in your frontal cortex. So... yeah, the autopsy. Oh, have you guys been following this? So there was an original autopsy from Mr. Floyd, Mr. George Floyd. There was an original autopsy where they said it wasn't asphyxiation, it wasn't strangulation, and from what I've heard, the people who've informed me, who seem to know what they're talking about, asphyxiation is cutting off the air.
Every day, but still.
Cutting off the blood flow. And then... there was another autopsy, which was commissioned by the family of Mr. Floyd, I keep thinking of Pink, it's really not good, and that came out, that the headline, you always got to dig in past the headline, right? So the headline was this is from ABC News.
Pink Floyd.
The headline said, independent autopsy finds George Floyd died of homicide by asphyxia.
Back in 2020.
The examination was led by a former New York City medical examiner. And there's a bunch of summary and all of that, but basically he says, look,
something like that.
You can't tell. You can't tell asphyxiation because when you asphyxiate someone, right, you squish their neck, and then after you stop it a short while afterwards, you can't really tell anymore. So he based his finding of asphyxia from looking at the video. And he says this openly. He says, hey man, it's just my opinion. I couldn't tell anything medically, but it's just my opinion. I looked at the video and it looked like asphyxia to me. So that's not very valid. And of course, he was found. I just want to make sure I get the actual facts here. I'm going to speak off the cuff on something important. So this is from TMZ, 3 letters that spell truth. So the Hennepin County Medical Examiner released its toxicology findings. We were waiting for these. I was waiting for these all weekend, and they just came out today. Here's the funny thing too, and listen man, you can check this timeline. You want to know how correct I am? People were saying it was murder on Twitter today, and what did I say? I said, could be, could also be, he had a heart attack. Well, look at this, look at this. George Floyd had fentanyl in his system when he was killed and died from a heart attack, according to the medical examiner. Now, fentanyl is pretty rough. It is pretty rough stuff.
It's rough stuff.
It is very. It's 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine.
Very potent.
It is a synthetic opioid pain reliever approved for treating severe pain, typically advanced cancer pain. Here's another one that says, this is from the DEA, fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is 80 to 100 times stronger than morphine. Pharmaceutical fentanyl was developed for pain management treatment of cancer patients applied in a patch on the skin. It's also, of course, diverted for abuse. It is added to heroin to increase its potency or to be disguised as highly potent. Heroin, fentanyl, is up to 100 times more potent than morphine and many times more potent than that of heroin. And let's see here. Drug users typically don't know when their heroin is laced with fentanyl, so when they inject the usual quantity of heroin, they can inadvertently take a deadly dose of fentanyl. They look, of course, identical, and it is absolutely nasty, incredibly dangerous stuff. So the Hennepin County Medical Examiner released its toxicology findings and say George died from cardiopulmonary arrest, which complicated law enforcement's subdual, restraint, and neck compression of him. And that is critical, but the report also says this under, quote, how the injury occurred. It says George experienced a cardiopulmonary arrest while being restrained by law enforcement. He suffered a heart attack while they were arresting him, and that complicated their efforts to subdue him. The report says George had fentanyl in his system, and they also found signs of recent methamphetamine use. So we've got one guy, the doctor for Floyd's family, who's mixed up with Trump, who said he just died from asphyxia, even though he couldn't tell from any direct medical examination, but just was glancing away at the video.
Capture objectives and kill your enemies.
Here we have fentanyl, methamphetamine use, and a heart attack.
I wouldn't mind that.
And that's why America is burning.
Friendly UAV
For those
overhead.
of you who don't know, George Floyd had cocaine issues way back in the day. And so here we have a multi-decade drug abuser and drug addict, a violent man who, according to some reports I've seen, also starred in pornography videos, or at least a pornography video. And cocaine can weaken and damage the heart in ways that really can show up on standard medical exams. So a multi-decade drug abuser. And see, when the cops tried to get him out of the car, he wouldn't cooperate. I think they finally got him out of the car, and they said, get in the cop car, right? You're under arrest, right? You're resisting arrest, and so on. And he wouldn't get into the car. He says, hey man, I'm claustrophobic. Now, of course, he may have been having anxiety attacks, maybe having a panic attack, or that may be when his heart decided to hit the road to forever land. And this is a terrible situation. It's a terrible situation. And of course, the cops may still be responsible. Just to be clear, I don't know. This is the whole purpose that is going to be figured out. But this guy, amphetamine, fentanyl, heart attack, come on. This idea that it was just straight up murder, cold-blooded, first-degree cop kill and murder.
Back up at Echo. Enemy VTOL in the AO. Hit! Hostiles at Alpha, go!
It's just yeah, he definitely ruled a homicide. Now, I'm not an expert on this, of course, right?
You're needed at B.
So,
Enemy launch. Enemy
the legal definition of homicide, right? So homicide is broader in scope than murder, right? So this is from the legal dictionary. So if we're going to get into the technical terms, let's get into them, right? So it's homicide may not be criminal, right? So the killing of one human being by another human being is ruled a homicide.
Enemy UAV
But that doesn't mean that it's criminal. And of course, the typical example of something that is homicide but not criminal is self-defense. If you kill a person who's threatening you with death or serious injury, then this is the defense for Liam McMichael with regards to robbery, right? That he grabbed Travis McMichael's shotgun, and therefore Travis McMichael had to use force to defend himself and so on, right? So murder is different, right? So murder is the unlawful killing of a person with malice, aforethought, or premeditated intent to kill.
overhead. We're taking Alpha.
So every time a human being is killed by another human being, that is a homicide. And so there's not a lot of categories that you can put into a death certificate, right? I mean, there's illness, accident, old old age, natural causes, whatever it is, right? There's a certain number of things that you can put in. And was it an accident? No, he didn't fall off a ladder and crack his head on the pavement.
Enemy UAV
Was it old
overhead.
age or was it natural causes? Well, no. Was it a direct illness? That's, you know, a heart attack. You say, oh, well, but he had a heart attack while he was being arrested because he was so scratched. It's like, okay, so what does that mean? You can't arrest anyone because they might have a heart attack? I don't know how that could possibly work. And he didn't say I'm having a heart attack. He said I can't breathe. And according to the lawyer, sorry, according to the medical examiner,
Enemy cruise
you
missile
can
incoming.
not be able to breathe, but still say that you're not able to breathe repeatedly. So that is, I don't know what homicide means, but he did not die of natural causes. It was not an accident. It was not an illness. He was killed by someone. Now,
Enemy counter UAV
I don't know
online.
the level of fentanyl that he had in the system. I don't think that's been released as yet. But if the fentanyl was laced, then maybe it was
Precision airstrike, take cover.
maybe it wasn't.
Securing
Seems
Delta.
like a tough case to nail to me. And you could say, of course, well, once the guy didn't have, he's in the care and custody of the cops. They're now responsible for his health and his welfare. But the guy had a bum ticker. He had heart disease. He was on fentanyl, with recent methamphetamine. I mean, he was a mess. And maybe the cop is responsible. And that's something which we'll see played out at a court of law. There's a reason why he got third degree of manslaughter and not first degree, right?
Enemy VTOL in the AO.
So he certainly, the cop was not, as far as I can see, the cop was not trying to kill him. The cop was not targeting him. There's a reason why George Floyd was on the road, like on the ground, rather than in the car, because he wouldn't get into the car. And they saw, of course, that he was experiencing public threat. That's why they called the ambulance, which took about 10 minutes to. So we'll get, I'm sorry to be put on this to one side, but the fact that it's called homicide simply means that it's not entirely natural causes.
Hostiles are taking Echo.
And we'll see. But
Captured Alpha.
this is something that you're not going to see off a lot in the mainstream media. You're not going to see that George Floyd had coronary, had heart disease, that fentanyl, which is a wickedly, wildly, incredibly dangerous, that he had a multi-decade history of drug abuse, and all of that. So it's just...
Okay, I got one.
And it's just one of those things that
Securing
really...
Bravo.
Enemy's
Enemy's halfway there. Step it up.
So... People can say, well, he was killed because of $10 bill or $20 bill. That's not true. That's not the case. That's not reality. Because that's not causality. That's not the way that the law works. It's not the way that the cops work. You get all of this, right? He died for a variety of reasons, some of which may have had something to do with the cops. Perfectly aware of that, and I'm happy to hear those cases, and that case will be put before. But as far as I've been able to tell, and I have looked this up, believe it or not, on the Minnesota site, the police site, you're allowed to use microscopes. You're allowed to, if you're in danger, if you're concerned. People say, oh yes, but he was on the ground and he was fading out and so on. Yeah, that absolutely should be examined by a court of law. I have no problem with that. I'd like to know more. But this was not a man in his prime who had no health issues, and he had a heart attack. From what the coroner is saying, the man had a heart attack. And cops can do some pretty mean things to you. They can beat you up, they can shoot you, they can give you tickets, they can arrest you, they can throw you in the back of the car.
Friendly UAV overhead. Hostiles have Alpha.
It's not within their control. They don't have that magical ability to give you a heart attack.
Fucking retards.
Enemy
And so
VTOL in the
because
AO.
of that, we will
Enemy
see
UAV overhead.
what We are gonna have to see. But he was hunted down like a dog. He was killed in the streets because racist crop, blah, 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 blah. That narrative.
Enemy cruise missile incoming.
Let's at least be honest about that. That narrative has completely fallen apart. Maybe there's some culpability on the part of the cops that I don't quite understand.
Enemy UAV overhead.
Had fentanyl, traces of methamphetamine, heart disease. He had a heart
Enemy
attack.
counter UAV online.
I mean, this was not his day, man. This was not his day. And
Enemy
if he had not resisted arrest, and part of his resisting arrest might have had to do with the fact that his judgment was
Allied cruise
compromised
missile away.
by aforementioned fentanyl, which is not known to give people clear and lucid decision-making capacity. So if he hadn't resisted arrest, because, you know, there were two other black people in the car with him, I think a man and a woman. They didn't have their faces on the ground, they didn't have the officers on their back, they didn't have heart attacks. It's like with Rodney King. With Rodney King, there were two other men in the car, two other black men in the car with Rodney King in the 90s when he was screaming through heights suburban neighborhoods before being apprehended by the cops. There were two other black men in the car with Rodney King, and they didn't get beaten up because they didn't psychotically try to resist and attack the cops. You attack the cops, you're going to get beat.
Captured Alpha.
And attacking the cops is bad enough
You're needed today.
as a whole.
We're
But
holding Echo.
attacking the cops
Friendly UAV overhead.
when you're a 48-year-old man with a bad heart and a history of heart weakening
There is awesome.
drug abuse is a very, very bad idea. Listen, when you get older, man, the audience is pretty young out there. Like, good for you, man. Good for you, but I'll tell you this: when you get older, it's you slow down. Like, you slow down. I had months of shoulder pain just from playing a couple of hard games of tennis before. I know this is kind of ridiculous and hoity-toity crap with regards to what's going on with George Floyd, but it's bad stuff. It's bad stuff. Well, I don't think he attacked him, but I think he was resisting arrest. That's what I understand.
Friendly IAV dropping in.
And so somebody says, so if I drink a bunch of coffee and the pump puts his knee on my neck and I have a heart attack, your logic is that my coffee drinking caused my heart attack. We don't know the causality, right? We don't know the causality, and we will find out
Enemy cruise
about
missile
the
incoming.
causality as time goes along. Right? No more volume? Yeah. We will find out about the causality.
Dropping in. Securing B.
And that's part of what the examination is hopefully going to figure things out. That's what the examination is hopefully going to figure things out. All right. So let's... I think he was resisting arrest. Well, no, you've got to see, you watch the video. There's a video from a different angle wherein they're trying to get him out of the car and he's just not participating, right? You're a bleeding fool. You make conservatism look bad. I'm not a conservative.
Enemy UAV overhead.
Would he have died by the pressure on his back or on his neck if he wasn't high on drugs and didn't have a heart attack?
We're taking Echo. Enemy
And yeah, the
precision
combination,
airstrike.
the conflation of coffee with fentanyl
Enemy
is
VTOL in the AO.
not particularly great.
Enemy launches an advanced UAV.
No one deserves that type of treatment. This deserves things, I gotta tell you. I mean, that's, you know, this is not the channel for you if that's where your thinking is. Just not thinking. You know, like, I don't mean to be all exclusionary, but, you know, like real adults trying to have intelligent and important conversations here about some very significant social issues. So if you're just like, well, no one deserves to be treated like that, that's... My daughter wouldn't say that, and she's 11, right? I mean, because he deserves and be treated, and the man had agency. George Floyd had agency in the situation. George Floyd chose in the past to take drugs. He chose in the past to be part of a home invasion where he jammed a gun into a woman's abdomen and then ransacked her house for money and drugs. He chose to take methamphetamine. He chose to take fentanyl. He chose to resist arrest. So I don't know what it means to be treated like that. Like this isn't somebody just kicking a dog out of nowhere. This is a complex dance of choice and consequences. And you could say, yes, well, but he didn't choose because he was on fentanyl. It's like, so once you choose to take the drug, you're still responsible for the consequences. Like, you don't get to walk away